What is your crazy ex story? Had a girl in high school who wished she was my girlfriend, so this is her story. Was good friends with her brother, so she was always around. She tried making friends with my mom to get to me. Here are a few things she did. Keep in mind, we never dated or had anything close to a relationship beyond friendship of any kind. No mixed signals from me either. I was clear as a bell that I was not interested like that. One called my mom up to hang out with her. Mom gave me $20 and said to get lost. Best mom ever. She lost her shoes at the house, so she could not leave. She lost them in the chair of the dining room table on the other side of the house. Two broke down in front of my house at 7:30 on a Saturday morning. I lived 20 miles from her house. Thought we could hang out while someone came for her car, which I turned on by turning the key. 3 threatened to beat the shit out of my homecoming date 1 year if she did not back out of going with me. I then had to forbid her from talking to my date. 4 ditched her homecoming date and tracked down my group at where we went for dessert. I did not finish mine and she asked if she could. I said go for it and went back to my date. Apparently, she told her mom we had some sort of Lady and the Tramp moment and that we were now dating. Her mom calls mine, they were friends, all excited. My mom bursts into my room and asks me what the heck I did. Told her I gave her my leftover cheesecake. First time I ever had to break up with someone I never knew I was in a relationship with. There are so many more, but those are some of the best. First night in a new city, and I call my mother to tell her I arrived safely. She tells me that the girl I dated when I was 16-17, I was 23 and had not heard a peep in 5 years, called out of the blue looking for me and left her number. Lonely and bored, I rang her up and had a strange catch-up session. She told me she was engaged to a woman and that her life after we broke up was a series of unfortunate events. We hung up on pleasant terms with no plans to keep in touch. 3 days later I am exiting my building and who is standing there in the rain waiting? Yep, her. She had flown 2,500 miles in the middle of the night because she thought we were destined to be together. Told me how she was so torn up about us not being together that she had pulled out all of her pubic hair. She also brought her fiancé, who was as crazy as she was and was urging my ex to have a baby with me. I calmly tried to tell her that this was insane and that I had no interest in any of this when out of nowhere all goes black. I wake up to chaos as my doorman is holding the fiancé down waiting for police. Turns out she had hit me on the back of the head with a full bottle of champagne they had brought to celebrate with. Arrests and restraining orders followed. Too long didn't he read I love to stick it in crazy. When I broke up with a significant other, she decided that she was pregnant. She went as far as to Photoshop ultrasound results and pregnancy tests and tell my mother she was going to be a grandmother. She even had a name picked out for the baby. She had everyone at Outwork, Borders, convinced I was a heartless bastard who did not care about his unborn son. I finally found the original copy of the last ultrasound that she had altered on a Google image search. I sent it to her and guess what? Never heard from her again, not once. After reading some of these, I want to give some very important advice to people that are dealing with stalkers. People who stalk are dangerous individuals. At some point, they will snap and do something to threaten your life or your loved ones. This is a regular occurrence that could be stopped with proper actions. For starters, do not let them impact your life and your decisions. Have no contact with them, do not look at their profiles, and ignore them. If they begin doing stalker-type things, you need to document it. Date, timestamp, hard copy, file these things away. Messages, texts, calls, etc. should be recorded, but do not respond except to say the following: cease and desist all communication with me. Do not respond to this. If you fail to comply, I will contact the authorities. If they shows up where you are in public, write it down and consider taking a picture. If they show up at your home, call the police. When you have documentation that shows them stalking you, contact the police. They will be looking for these things. 1. You are not initiating or continuing contact with them. 2. There is an apparent pattern of them stalking or harassing you. 3. You have told them to cease and desist all communication, and they have failed to comply. If your documentation meets all of these things, they can begin to help you. They may have to call them multiple times. It may seem like a waste of police time, but this is necessary to take legal action. How do I know this? I went through something very similar with a person I had dated a long time ago. An ex of hers was messaging her, harassing her, accessing online accounts through the forgot password feature, knew enough info, and showing up at random places. We had to go to the police, and they told us exactly what I have shared with you. I was dating a young lady who lived in the Midlands, and she had come down to London at the weekends, and we had have some fun. Nothing too serious, but it made my weekends enjoyable. Out of the blue I was asked to move from London to NY by work, and so I told my then casual partner that I did have to break things off because I was leaving the country. She accepted it and stopped coming down at the weekends. Anyway, fast forward a few months and my move to NY gets canned due to budget cuts. I still had my ex on Facebook, and I start to notice some odd photos popping up. It turned out she had quit her job and moved to NY when she thought I was going to move, and was now living there for 6 months. She reached out to tell me a few days later, and I had to explain that I was not there. She was kinda pissed. TLDR, ex moved countries to be with me but forgot to check if I was in said country. Well, my ex was somewhat of a liar, major alcoholic, and abusive. The time it took for her to switch from "oh we are drinking, having fun," to "well now I did like to see how hard I can punch you in the face" was minimal. I broke up with her 3 times, and after getting back with her after those times she was sweet, considerate and awesome. Then a couple months and she had resort to her old tactics. The worst thing though, she made me think that it was my fault. What finally ended it was this previous New Year's. We were at a bar drinking when we got into a slight argument. She starts beating me up. Our friends were there, witnessed the entire thing. My buddy and I were talking the next day. He asked why it happened. I said I do not know, but I probably deserved it. Realized how ducked up me saying that was, and noped the duck out of there. Happier now than ever. Also, I never laid a hand on her, neither to harm her or stop her. Too long didn't he read Not All Redheads Are Crazy. I was engaged to my high school sweetheart, who I pretty much allowed to treat me like dirt for years. After high school, while we were living together, it was apparent that the relationship was not going anywhere, and I finally found the courage to end it. I was the one with the job and the money, so I was keeping the apartment and asked her to move out. I think I gave her like 2 weeks or something, but it was a long time ago. Eventually she shacked up with some guy, I think, and was out of my hair. Every now and then she would pop in because she left all of her shit at my place while she was trying to find a new place. I kept hearing stories from everyone of her epic levels of sluttiness and just tried to stay away from it as best I could. At some point though, out of anger, I went into her jewelry box and took back the engagement ring I did given her. It was several weeks before she realized it was gone, and I did already sold it by then and told her so when she confronted me in my apartment. She lost her shit. She started demanding that I give it back to her, or at least it is value in cash. I told her that is not how engagement rings work and she can duck off. She started hitting me and trashing my place. I did not have to take it. She was smaller than me, and was at the time a black belt, but I just let her take out her anger. She ripped my shirt, slapped me, punched, kicked, bit, everything. Finally she hit me square inches the face and drove my head into the door behind me. On the other side of that door was a calendar hanging on a nail that stuck through the door, just a small amount but enough to drive into the back of my skull, and it ducking hurt. I just grabbed her hands to stop her from flailing anymore and directed her over to the door. She could tell that I had lost my patience, so she just stormed out. About an hour later she shows back up, this time with her mom and the police. The cop took my statement, took one look at me and asked me if I wanted to press charges or if I needed an ambulance. I declined both, and then he escorted her and her mom off the property and advised that they take it up with small claims court if they wanted to proceed any further. My ex-wife is bipolar and had a complete disconnect from reality. She went into behavior that I guess could be called manic, but it was worse than that. She destroyed every part of our life and secretly ran up $70,000 in credit card debt, like taking large groups of people to expensive restaurants. She forged or removed my name from documents and ended up taking everything possession I had with the exception of my computer. She left me homeless and penniless. I had a girlfriend who did many things. You'd think I would have caught the red flags, but these are the three that stick out the most in my mind. 1. I worked on a Saturday morning, so I stayed home while she went out to her friend's house to drink. Apparently at this house they started talking about her ex who moved across the country. I know why now. While she was on a trip, they call him. He says he does not want to have anything to do with her. I get a call at 3 a.m. from one of her friends saying they caught her cutting herself in the bathroom. 2. I never once had sex with her without a condom. She tried to convince me that I did one time when I was super drunk. I have never in my life been so drunk that I forgot what happened. She had wanted me to think she was pregnant so I would propose. I found out after we broke up that she tried the same thing with her previous 2 ex-boyfriends and that she succeeded at it with the boyfriend who came after me. 3. She hated when I played World of Warcraft because warlocks in the game could summon succubi, and she hated that word. Apparently all the friends of one of her ex-boyfriends used to call her that. The rest is just a slew of going through all my text messages and Facebook conversations and occasionally showing up at my house when I did not reply to her. When I was 16 I lost my virginity to my girlfriend at the time. It was completely consensual, but after we broke up she threatened to tell her mother that I sexually assaulted her and attempted to extort money from me. At first I was terrified, but after thinking it through I told her to duck off. While I was in class, I was receiving a ton of calls, texts, and voicemails from my then ex. I ignored them and refused to be distracted because it was a midterm review session. He then found my class, threw open the classroom door, and started dragging me by the arm to leave the class. I was absolutely horrified that this scene was occurring in front of about 40 people. I resisted because I really wanted to stay in the class and he was being crazy, irrational, and ridiculous. He finally was able to drag me out, and, though the entire class was silent and watching, they did nothing to help. However, when I finally got outside, I told him off. When he finally left, the class was over and I returned to my own dorm room. It was torn apart. My laptop was folded over its back and its screen had been stomped on and distorted. My DS was murdered in a like manner. My mirror was cracked down the middle with blood on its broken edges. Finally, in the middle of my room were torn out leaves of my diary with drops of blood on them. Apparently, my ex had broken into my room, read my diary and went berserk. On the pages he tore out, I had written something like, "I am glad we broke up. I will find someone better." Yeah, he is definitely a crazy ex. He continued doing other crazy stuff for a while. I called the police on him a few times, but they did not do anything to help. Eventually, he graduated and disappeared. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.